Hey everybody, it's Ken McElroy, and of course I've got my great friend here, Kim Kiyosaki.
I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun.
Kim, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You just talk a little bit about, a lot of people, I think, have a tough time just getting started. Just that one thing, just focus on one small thing. I always tell somebody, just have one goal. It seems so far away, but they don't understand we all started.
We all started very small.
With the same fear.
Yeah. Oh, lots of fear. I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about cash flow. I had only been raised probably similar to most people. You hear about the stock market a little bit, and I didn't understand that. But all it was like save your money and put it in a 401k. And so I had no idea about real estate. But I was basically just drove around, and I'd see a sign, like a for sale sign, and I'd call the broker, and even doing that, because wasn't quite sure what questions to ask.
Anxiety.
Yeah, it's like, okay, is this like a rental neighborhood, or is it no? And some people say no, they don't want they don't want rental people here, and that was a big lesson because I did buy one property that the owners did not want renters in their community.
Okay.
But I was scared to death. I'm like, I found this little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. It was literally a 10-minute walk from my house where I lived. And I didn't know what I was doing. And sometimes ignorance is bliss. And it was $45,000. I had to put $5,000 down. And I had all the fear of, what if the roof leaks? What if I make a mistake? What if I lose money? What if this? What if that? And I literally was looking for a reason why not to do this deal. That I wanted something to come up that said, no, this is not going to work. You can't do it, because that would have been so much easier.
And that's actually pretty common at this point.
Yeah.
To look for reasons not to, and have that anxiety on just the phone call, and feeling stupid by picking up the phone and asking somebody a question that you don't know the answer to.
Right.
Those are all very common.
They're really common, really common. And it wasn't just the first property. It was there with the second and the third and the fourth. And it took a while. With every property I bought, there'd be a little less anxiety. But it was, you never know exactly what you're buying, ever. You do your due diligence and you follow up with it. But that little house, I finally did cross the line. But to your point, it's easier not to do the deal.
Yeah.
In the short term, but it becomes harder in the long term.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. I always tell people it's almost like starting a new job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not knowing what the culture is, not really knowing what you're supposed to be doing, not knowing who your supervisors are, and all those things. And, and when you sit down and talk to somebody for the first time, you don't know what they're even like.
Right.
And so it's kind of like that.
Yeah. You're becoming a beginner again. You got to be a beginner.
Yes.
And I kind of felt that way on most of the deals I did. So that little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, I finally did the deal. I finally crossed the line, and I'm like, okay, we'll see what we have here. And I would collect the rent, and I'd pay the mortgage, and I'd pay the expenses, and at the end of every month, I had $25 in my pocket, and that's how I started.
The key, too, by the way, cash flow.
Cash flow, yes, yes.
Making sure that you have enough rent to cover the expenses.
And then I made the classic mistake. When the renter did move out, I thought, oh, great, I can raise the rent. So I raised the rent without understanding what the market wanted and what was just what the rents should be. So I raised the rent, and the house sat empty for 3 months. Yeah. Because I raised it too much.
Yep.
And then I'm negative cash flow now, because I got to pay the mortgage and pay all the expenses without the rent coming in. So a lot of lessons. I mean, one of the great things about investing in real estate is the lessons you learn along the way. Right. They're not just real estate lessons, they're life lessons.
They are. They are. There's a lot of human behavior and a lot of relationship things, and just follow up on basic things.
Yep.
And accounting.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I wasn't very good at that. But to that point, every property is a business.
Yes.
It's not a hobby. It's a business, and you got to treat every single property, whether it's a single-family house, whether it's a fourplex, whether it's 100 units, you got to treat it as a business.
Yes. That's just. Well, I think sometimes people don't realize, because as you know, when we get into some of these talks and go on the road, and a lot of these people are kind of flippers, or they're kind of capital gain people.
Yeah. Yes.
They don't realize the tax benefits and the cash flow. We get massive cash flow with no tax.
Right. Where the flippers are paying a lot of tax.
A lot of tax.
Yeah.
Well, they're paying commissions, and they're paying capital gains and depreciation recapture.
And
all
they're
those
only
things.
as good as their next deal.
Correct, right. So they have to time the market and stop,
Yeah.
which is
I mean,
super
you know
hard.
how hard it is to find a good property.
And honestly, this is all we teach.
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
thinking that way. There is a possibility to buy real estate, to have a massive cash flow, and just with the way you think. It all
Yeah.
starts in the mind.
Yep, and it does start in the mind. And really what we're teaching is for people to be personally responsible for their financial lives. And because I think that's what's part of the big problem with the world right now is everybody's depending on the government. And people don't want to work or they don't want to think differently. But if you can take responsibility for your own financial life and not depend upon the government to take care of you or your employer to take care of you, I mean, how powerful would that be?
It's the best.
That's why we do what we do.
Well, Kim, thank you for
Thank you,
continuing
Kenny.
to change lives.
Thank
I love
you.
you.
Love you too.
Yeah,
thank you for
very,
the work
very
you
much.
do.
You too.
Amazing.